But we're still waiting for a couple of council members to connect. If you want to do that, Alder Denny, Herbst, Larson, and that's it. Okay. There we go.
Yeah, I was just seeing if anyone put it in after I left. We do have one person who's giving public comment on open door.
Oh, okay. Should we start with that?
I don't know.
Well, it's fine. Yes. All right. Team effort here tonight. Alrighty.
You're good to go.
It is Monday, August 28th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. and you are at a special meeting of the Common Council of the City of Wausau. Welcome, everybody. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. The clerk will take the roll call.
We have 11 voting members present.
All right, thank you. Next up, we will have a presentation by Wausau and Pt.1 Enterprises on the Foundry on 3rd Phase 1 LLC First Amendment request and project progress. So if you're here to help us with that presentation, welcome. Yes, I'll let maybe Liz.
Good evening, Council. I'm just here to make an introduction to the amendment that you will be voting on tonight. So just to remind everybody there of the history of the project and where we're at, we had a development agreement that this council adopted and was signed on September 28th, 2022. That included a September 1 commencement date of this year and a December 31, 2024 completion date, so a 14-month development timeline. Pt.1 Enterprises then alerted us to the need for this extension earlier this summer. So the request on the table is a commencement date moved from September 1 to June 1, 2024, and a completion deadline moved from December 31st, 2024 to November 1st, 2025. So it's basically a 9-month delay on the start and then moves the development timeline to a 17-month development timeline. I would like to remind this council of several other comparable requests we have received in the past 2 years. So first is River Life Condos. If everyone recalls, that had 3 extensions on that development agreement. It ended up moving the commencement date from May of 2021 ultimately to November of 2022. And that was, again, done in 3 increments. The 4th amendment was also for a date change, and that was when this council, and I believe it was actually at ED, refused to entertain that fourth amendment because 4 was just too many for an appetite. Then there was a banter extension that moved retroactively the completion deadline from December 31, 2022 to May 31st of 2023, so just about 6-month delay on that one. And we, again, knew about that and then retroactively extended that development agreement timeline. And then we most recently had 2 housing plan option amendments or extensions. So both Commonwealth and Gorman, so recall Gorman was awarded a planning option. They won the RFP response in October of 2021 for Westside Battery. When they did not receive their LIHTC credits, we extended their planning option on that site for an additional 12 months to allow for another cycle of tax credits, which they then received this year and are moving forward under that new planning option that allows them access to the site until the end of this year. We're working on putting a development agreement together for that slowly but surely. And then $700,000 with Commonwealth. We, after they applied for their
Point
tax.
of order. Are we here to discuss or and remember about the other?
This is the
The delays
presentation
or-
portion.
Okay.
Thank you.
I am reciting these to just remind everyone of recent extensions that we've granted. So the Commonwealth extension was granted earlier this year to allow again for another cycle of tax credit application, which we are very much hoping will be awarded next year. Both of those extensions, those affordable housing option extensions, were due to the need for LIHTC credits to move those projects forward. This is an extension request on the table to allow for more time to raise equity. Both of the LIHTC credits in an affordable housing project stack and equity in a market rate project stack are very normal pieces of the project stack component, the capital stack components. So basically, we allowed for more time to line up financing to be able to move those projects forward, and that's what's on the request today. So you have obviously a choice today. You can accept the amendment or you can reject it. If you reject the amendment, you would be basically back at square one. We would be looking at for WAS to select another developer. We also would be it would be detrimental to our downtown, which is not just the heart of our community, but the heart of our region. The mall site has always been a symbiotic relationship with the downtown. So goes that site, so goes the downtown. And we really can't have this black hole sucking the life out of our downtown for another several years. My main concern, well, not even main, but another concern that I would bring to your attention is further reputation damage to our reputation as a place to bring development. We have known about this issue earlier this summer, and it would be acting in bad faith, I feel, to not allow this development to move forward when we've known that this is a delay that's been requested. To approve the amendment allows the project to keep moving forward. We would expect a groundbreaking in spring of 2024 with about 150 plus new market rate downtown apartments and residents and more than 150 residents, and then new businesses by the end of 2025. I would remind you also that there are no funds going to the developer until this project is built. All that we approved in the development agreement is a reverse TIF, so they don't receive any payment until or unless the project is built. Once built, we can expect approximately $120,000 to our TID. And I would also remind you that this delay means the developer receives less TID incentive. We have in the development agreement a maximum extension or a maximum amount of payments to the developer goes along with the life of the TID is 21 payments if they commence this year. If they do not, then it's a maximum of 20 payments. And it maxes out at the end of the life of the TID. I would also remind people that downtown businesses need this development. And again, downtown is the heart of our community and the heart of our region. No other city in our metro area has what we do in our downtown. Obviously, it is your job to do what is in the best interest of the city. Accepting a 9-month extension on a project that is making progress gives leeway for the development to move forward. Also, as you'll hear in the presentation, WAS is picking up the tab of the delay, so there's no cost to the city. The downside is 9 extra months of patience. So That's all I have to say for an intro, and then I'll turn it over to Waz and T-Wall.
Thank you.
Council, thanks for your time. So since we last spoke a few weeks ago, we've updated our construction plans, and those have been submitted to E-Plan Review. We've addressed all of E-Plan Review's comments, so we hope to hear from them very soon. And then while doing that, we've upgraded our sprinkler system, our fire protection system from 13R to 13, which is an upgraded system, more stringent, fully sprinklered instead of partially sprinkled. And we've also had the opportunity to look at other building efficiencies that we can work on. We're working with PACE Equity to meet green low carbon certification. And in order to qualify for PACE, you have to exceed building code efficiencies by at least 10%. So we have the opportunity to do that. And PACE is an additional funding source that we can tap into as well. Our electrical contractor is currently sizing for electrical load to supply the building and at least 30% of our parking stalls with EV charging stations. And then the rest of our MEP subcontractors are completing our gas and electrical applications so we can get our transformer ordered, our electrical switch gears and our meter stacks, anything with long lead times that we can order now that we can avoid any timing issues in the future. And while we hope that everything's in place before the winter, including the building permit, so we can start construction, there's no guarantee. If everything is done before the winter, then we can start construction before year's end. But if not, we'd have to wait until after winter to avoid those winter conditions, and we can start when the frost is out of the ground, so we can avoid additional costs. Up to this point, we've spent a significant amount of money, time, and resources. This is 2 years in the making. We've spent well over $1 million, and we're all in on this. We're going to continue to be all in on this because we want to build something amazing. We want to deliver on our promises, and we'd appreciate if you guys would share in that with us, and let's build something amazing together. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Stubbe with the Dwight and Linda Davis Foundation, and we're one of the supporters of WAS. Two of us will speak on behalf of WAS tonight. I'll start, and then our managing director, Chuck Adorsey, will follow. A couple points that I wanted to make. From March 15th of 2022 to July 23, the Federal Reserve increased interest rates 11 times. It took the Federal Reserve rate from 0.5% to 5.5%. So what that's meant in a project like this is you go from planning to borrow, a lot of money at 3% to borrowing a lot of money in excess of 8%. In addition to that, since 21, construction inflation costs are in excess of 35%. So you combine inflation and the interest rate increases and pile that into this project, and the equity requirements double. I know from talking with the T-Wall folks that they're accustomed to raising half the amount of equity that that in the past years than what they have to do for this project. So the other thing is to point out is there's a lot of banks right now that are doing very little lending, because they can play the spread on the Federal Reserve money, and they don't need to take the risk of lending. So it's hard for a lot of people to find loans right now. T-Wall has hung in there, and they do have banks interested in working with them, and that's an accomplishment all by itself. So T-Wall needs more time, and the WAS board understands what these economic conditions have done and made the transaction more difficult. So we've agreed to an extension as well with respect to the sale of the real estate to them. And it's as Liz pointed out, you've done other extensions for financial reasons before, so this seems to me to be a pretty easy decision on your part. I know there's been some talk, some people have suggested, well, what kind of guarantee can we get? I've got a long career in real estate development as a CPA. I had a lot of real estate development type clients. There is no guarantee in any real estate transaction. It's not until it's up and built and funded and you can say there's your guarantee. And what is Plan B if the extension is not granted? Right, we don't have another developer in the mix, and right now finding developers is very, very difficult given the economic conditions with the construction costs, the interest rates. So we're way down the road on this, and the city's been with us. So lastly, I'd just say that the two foundations, the Judd S. Alexander Foundation and the Davis Foundation, have a long history of helping Wausau. And the mall redevelopment is perhaps the two foundations' biggest undertaking yet. But if you want a guarantee, I'll guarantee you that our intentions are honorable and noble. We have the city's best interest at heart. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Chuck Adorsey, Managing Director for Wausau Opportunity Zone. I have just a few topics that I would like to talk about, and let me start talking a little bit of an update on the streets and also Block 4. Good progress is being made on our temporary streets. That would include 2nd Street, 3rd, and Jackson. This week, water and sewer and storm sewer will go in front of the Children's Imaginarium, and then it'll go down our extended 3rd Street and connect at Washington Street. When those utilities are complete, 2nd Street will be blacktopped, 3rd Street and Jackson Street will have road base. As you know from my previous report to you, I made the call not to start the excavation on Block 4 because of the fact that we are not ready to put the foundation in, as we are now targeting for the spring of next year. Because I made that decision, when the utilities are in on the streets, they will be completed in late September, and WAS will then cap 3rd Street, Jackson Street, and a partial area on Block 4 with road base at WAS expense. In addition, Eric Lidman and myself have been working with the excavation contractor selected for Block 4 collaboratively. Again, they remain committed to perform the work even if it extends into the spring of next year. There will be some added trucking cost to their contract because of the late start, and WAS has committed to take care of those additional costs. We are not expecting the city to pay anything in regards to this, and in fact, we are not asking them to do so. Secondly, it has been suggested that WAS should sell Block 4 to T-Wall Enterprises sooner than later, as this would somehow add to their commitment to the project beyond the 2 years that they have been involved in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they've spent in architectural, engineering, permitting, and contractor pre-construction. As I also stated previously, WAS will not sell property to any developer before their project, which in this case must align totally with the redevelopment plan for our downtown, is approved in all aspects and is ready to break ground immediately. We are not putting ourselves or our community in a compromising position where any number of things can happen when we no longer control the land. And on the other side, developers should not buy land if all aspects of the project are not ready to go. In closing, let me say that this amazing project that is 3 years in the making now continues to press on despite a few hurdles along the way. That can be credited to the collaboration effort we have again and will again witness tonight. Despite the extreme challenges of our current state of affairs, what small city in America would not like to be in our place? This is a partnership where we all are pulling together. pull the rug out from Foundry, you also pull it out from Children's Home and WAS, the city staff, which has been amazing. WAS recently also approved a $450,000 additional investment into the project. They are now pushing somewhere around $6 million, expecting no financial gain, only to see our communities move forward. But it even goes beyond that. Add to those I just mentioned, and you add our downtown businesses needing a hand up and the communities around us that are looking to our leadership. There's no risk to waiting for spring, just one huge opportunity lost if we do not, and it will be lost for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any questions from our body yet, but you will have plenty of opportunity to speak. I'm going to move ahead with public comment. Looks like we have a bunch of people signed up. First person is Dave Ekman.
Good evening. I'm Dave Ekman, President and CEO of the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce, also President of Wausau Opportunity Zone, Inc. Tonight, from the position of the Chamber leadership, the mission of the Chamber is to strengthen our member businesses and enhance our community by building business success. And I wanted to start out with that because business and community and collaboration and partnership are what are so pivotal to the success of this community. One cannot have one without the other. And so when I talk about this tonight, I'm not going to get on where Chuck and Jeff were and where others are likely to go, but I want to talk to you about our town, Wausau. An exceptional place. I've called this home since 2007. I love it here. And I know there's many back here that love this community. But what I want to talk to you about tonight is that as alders and as mayor, you've sat in the chairs that you've sat in for years, and you've made strong, key decisions for this community. But before you, there were mayors and alders before you that made key decisions in the future of this community that go back decades. And for us to build a competitive, vibrant 21st century community, it goes back that far. When we talk about council members and mayors buying brownfield in collaboration with the foundation that's right here in the room and reinventing that brownfield along the river. I live on river life and I see the vibrancy, and it's because of all of you in partnership with business and community that we are building a very special community. The river, Wisconsin Eye Clinic, the Dudley Tower, the Riverwalk from Winton to Thomas, and a vision for further development. Wausau on the Water, River Life Park, River Life Marina with ADA access to the water. Doesn't happen without all of you and all of those who have sat in your seats prior. We need to continue to move forward. And now when we talk about the river and the investments that you've made in wayfinding from the river up to the downtown, another piece of investment by this organization, by this committee. Consider the partnership and investments that the city's made in downtown proper, the 400 block. 16-year process. It took us a while to get there, but we got there. It takes time. The things we're talking about in this community, what we're trying to build, take time. We need a little bit more time on this. You play a major role in facilitating economic development. Your role is very important and appreciated. With that, asking you to give T-Wall an extension to move this project forward come spring.
Thank you. Next, I have Owen Jones.
Hey, guys. So you probably recognize me because I spoke at a few of these, but I have a background. I own Jones Real Estate Group, and I also own Tommy Docks, and about 45 million worth of real estate in Marathon County. And we've done tons of developments, mini storage, apartments. In this environment, I mean, for me anyway, I guess I'm not old enough maybe to have past experience, but I can tell you it's unprecedented. It's just a very difficult environment for developers. Jeff spoke about it, and I wanted to bring it up again just to illustrate the cost of capital. When this was approved and when they started this site plan, interest rates were sub 4%, right? We're talking about 30 million plus in senior debt on this project. So in real numbers, we're at 8%, 8.25% realistically. That's a 5% delta from where it was. 5% per million is 50 grand in extra sunk cost just in interest. So times 30, you have 1.5 million. Over 100 grand a month in sunk costs just from the interest change. So I actually consider it a huge win that this developer is still on board, leading the charge, going forward with it, considering the macro environment and considering what's out of their control, being obviously the inflationary cost of construction, coupled with the interest cost. I mean, it's a double whammy. And so I think it's pretty clear with them being here tonight, obviously with us being here, there's a genuine sense of urgency to build this and to not have a giant hole in our downtown that nobody wants to see, add tax base for the city, which obviously is beneficial, and most importantly, send a message that this town is pro-development, that this town is easy to work with, that this town is somewhere where you can invest and it's fairly painless and people rally behind the investment and the investors. And these are critical things because the reality is that C-size markets like us are fighting over scraps, and there's a lot of us fighting for them, and it's very, very competitive. And that's why you see the incentives you see for people moving to town, get a free, road bike or kayak or whatever it may be. We're having to get creative in these communities to attract people. Having a, vibrant downtown is like step number one. These young, talented people want to live downtown. They want to walk to breakfast. They want to walk to bars and restaurants. And so this development, in my opinion, is the most pivotal thing that we've had in Wausau for decades. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I have Michael Loy.
Good evening. Michael Loy, 514 Aspen Grove Lane. That's District 4, Ward 7. I'm a board member of the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership, but I also am part of a firm that is now a Wausau business called Geared Equity. Geared Equity is a business that is primarily a private equity real estate sponsor, among other things, which means that we traditionally acquire, manage, and work with real estate assets in multifamily and industrial all over the nation, but mostly here in Wisconsin. Along with that, we do get into some real estate development work. With that being said, I do not know Mr. Wall. I don't know the development in any great detail, and some might say that we compete, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that. As you're looking at a 9-month extension, I'm here to relay two things this evening. One is it's not really surprising that that's being asked at this point. And second, I'd like to encourage you to keep the bird you have in your hand. Real estate is a notoriously complicated and risky business. There are a myriad of different things that can go wrong in a project that a developer takes on, and if they do successfully, they're rewarded for doing that. There's a number of them that I could cover tonight, but there's 4 primary ones that I want you to consider in the times that we are that are impacting not only this project, but projects all over the nation. The first, whenever you look at a real estate project, is what is the market? And there are primary, secondary, and tertiary markets. Chicago's primary, Milwaukee's secondary, we're tertiary. To draw private investment into a tertiary market and real estate grade investments is very difficult. And what we're talking about is a $40 million project. That is not a person of individual wealth typically. It is a group of investors that are accredited investors, and it's not institutional investment. So it's really important that we have demand in this market, and until supply exceeds demand, your affordability problem won't be in check, and other opportunities for people and growth won't happen in this community. We need this construction. Construction costs have gone up. That's not a surprise. 4 years ago, it was $130,000 to do a unit. Went up to 160, over 200. It's well close to 300 now. That is not an exaggeration. When we talk about equity, any business or personal household has discretionary income if they have more income over their expenses. And what they do with that, they generally want a general level of return. There are safe assets, your savings bonds, your treasuries, and then the stock market, and then what we get into is alternative assets. And alternative assets require a higher return. With interest rates rising, people can park their money in safer assets right now, which is put a stop on private equity coming into projects like this. That's happened for about a year now. And then lastly, I'll just talk about banking, and Owen and others touched on it, but banks have virtually shut down their lending activities. Even if you have a great project, your loan officer will take it to the loan committee and it will die. So it's a very challenging environment. And if you have a developer right now that can deliver a project in the next year and a half, I would suggest that you keep that bird in the hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler Voigt.
Hi, my name's Tyler Vogt. I own Malarkey's Pub and Townie's Grill and the West Sider Diner and Lounge. I've been in kind of a weird position lately, being straddling both sides of the river and trying to get neighborhoods excited in two different areas. I'm 44 now, and I had to go through some life planning and have realized that I've been working for 20 years and I've got about 20 left to go. And I'm trying to decide where I want to spend my time and where I want to spend my energy. Downtown's been a challenge. We need employees. Right now, I have more employees that live outside Wausau than inside it. I have a GM from Tomahawk. I have 2 employees from Merrill. I have 1 from Point. I have 1 from Marshfield. And I have a girl that drives here from Harshaw to help keep Malarkey's alive because we've been friends for a long time. These people would love to live in this town and stop paying the gas prices they are. And the time spent in the car to get here. They don't care if it's $1,200 for rent instead of $900 an hour from here. It's cheaper and better for them to live here. They want to live here. We've been putting out events. We've been putting out art. We've been putting out culture. And we've been missing residents for 20 years. Don't make it another 20. Vote for this.
Thank you. Sam Wessel.
Good evening. Sam Wessel. I work for North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. I was invited because I've worked on the housing study that we did here and several others throughout the state. So I just wanted to give kind of a snapshot update of how the market's going. So last year we projected 4,500 units regionally by 2040, with the bulk of that, almost half of that within, by 2025. And I don't think that's happened so far. If we were to redo that study today, that demand, we wouldn't change those numbers. In talking with realtors on other projects, it sounds like the demand is still there. People are still buying and not scared off by interest rates. And this is from a buyer perspective, different from rental, but it illustrates that people are still looking for places to live despite what the economy is doing. And it's only going to get worse over time if things get delayed. So in addition to that, it's getting harder and harder for developers to build. I don't think I need to get into that because that's been illustrated tonight. More studies have emerged over the rising rents over the last few years, and the cities that have added more units have cooled their rent more successfully. Now, if you live in those cities, it might not feel like it, but it shows that the rents would spike even more had those units not been built. So a lot of those studies are coming out right now. That's pretty much all I have to say. So if there's one big takeaway with the housing market right now, demand is still there, even if people are, a little more hesitant to buy their forever home. There's still people who need a place to live. A lot of people living in other people's houses, sharing houses, living in parents' houses. So it's really hard to track what actual demand is because there's so many, it takes in so many different forms. And the benefit to higher end development is that it gets more people out of the existing housing stock that might be more affordable to a greater share of residents, both at the middle to lower income, and there's less competition. Even if you can't afford a new construction, it frees that existing stock up for someone else. So hopefully this information is useful for you tonight. I was just invited to provide a quick update. Feel free to contact me if you have more questions on any of these studies that we do. I've got lots of data on hand. Somebody in the community development department can get you connected with me if you are interested. Thank you.
Thank you. John Tubbs.
Good evening. And I'm John Tubbs. I've been in the banking industry for 38 years. Most of that, 33 years has been right here in Wausau. And I'll save a lot of the comments I had planned because of the comments that some of the others have made regarding costs and everything else. But so I'll tailor it to the banking industry. As you heard Michael say, if you have a bank, you're working with a bank on a development today, and he mentioned tertiary, second, and A place, like Chicago, those places are not able to get lending today. If you recall, Signature Bank filing bankruptcy and then followed up by Republic and American Bank, large banks. The thought was maybe it was a banking crisis. It wasn't. It was three very poorly run banks tied to cryptocurrency and other things. And as inflation hit and the rates started rising, those banks could not keep up with rising rates. And so there was a problem. Well, what happened was the Fed and the regulators then came down on the banks and started stress testing banks for what do their portfolios look like and what would you do if 25% of your loan portfolio went bad? Well, that's a ton. And so it became very problematic. So when Michael mentioned that if you have a bank that's willing to work with you today and a developer that's willing to work with you, you're in a very, very rare spot today across the country. This isn't a central Wisconsin issue. And so the fact that T-Wall is still committed, there's not going to, from my experience, this is the worst the banking industry has been in 38 years. We've gone through real estate, other crises in 08 and 09, and everything else. But the Fed is asking for banks to beef up their capital and be super solid. Well, so the banks, the way they beef up capital is to cut back their lending. You have to use capital at a bank level to back up the loans you make. So there's not going to be banks. That T-Wall has a bank interested. They have a term sheet. They're hanging in there. T-Wall's hanging in there. Developers today trying to do a commercial real estate project of any size is struggling, and you hear it today. I don't care if it's fourplexes. Finding a bank to do these things right now is very, very difficult. And we have an opportunity here with T-Wall and their banks that are lined up to keep this project moving. And so with that, I think it's very important for all of us to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Susan Lang.
Good evening. Susan Lang, 226-331 Kingbird Avenue in Wausau is where I live. I am president of Emmerich Properties, and I've been up here before. We're a landlord of over 500 units for hourly worker housing, as well as over 100 units for small business. And we've all been talking about today, I came to talk to you today with using my developer hat. We're a landlord, but we've also been a developer over the years. And just a recent example that kind of supports what's been talked about so far. In 2019, the city awarded Emmerich Properties a project on Grand Avenue where the old Ponderosa Hotel used to be. It had burned down and was in blight for quite a number of years, and we were awarded the project. And the reason I share that is from the time a development agreement is started till the time the developer begins and the project is complete, there's a lot that can happen. And in our case, in 2019, the city did their part. They awarded us the land at a low price, raised the building that was there, and then we took over. And then things show up like a pandemic in that case, or an example of what's happened in this last year also, things that a developer doesn't expect. If you've been doing it for over 50 years like we have, you have contingencies, you do expect certain things, but there's just sometimes things that show up that you don't expect. In our case, we continued, and we had a project that when we started it was to be a 16-unit, smaller apartment building to cost us $900,000. When it was done, it was $1.3 million, okay? And what that did was take what we wanted in rents at $600 a unit to hit that market that we were after, and had to bring up many of them to $900, which isn't a lot of money, but it completely wiped out the market we were going for and took us longer to rent. So I share that only because the developer really is the one doing the heavy lifting, taking the majority of the risk. And that's what we do. We're optimists. But we also have to, it's a return on investment. And I think Pt.1 Enterprise is doing a good job in asking for extra time so they can ensure their return on investment. And I encourage the council to make the decision to continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Rowe is next.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Matt Rowe, 1709 Tall Oaks Drive, District 6. I'm also president of the Ruder Ware Law Firm, and I'm chair of the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership, a business-led economic development organization. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to tell a quick story because I think it's got some relevance. I spent the day today with one of our newest associate attorneys. He's been with us for about 4 weeks. He's 25 years old and a recent graduate of the University of Wisconsin Law School. I told him I needed to get back from where we were to go to a city council meeting. He asked if I went to a lot of city council meetings. I told him not really. No offense. But I told him the subject and what I was going to be speaking about, and without prompting, he said, you know, it would have really been great to have another downtown or a downtown residence option. He and his girlfriend rented an apartment at the former Mountain Lanes property, so still in the city of Wausau. That's good news. But he lamented the fact that there weren't more options for him downtown. He looked at the River Life location, wasn't available. So I think that's an important story because I think that's our target demographic in many ways, that we want to get, you know, these 20-somethings living downtown. Tyler talked about this. And then I'll just conclude quickly with, you know, just to reiterate some of these comments that others have made. These projects are complicated. They take time to come together. The financing market has become significantly more challenging in the past year, and certainly within the last 6 months. Jeff, John, others have alluded to that. So I would ask for the council's patience as the private sector works to overcome these timing issues, and I would urge approval of this amendment to the development agreement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I have Jeff Sargent.
Thank you. My name's Jeff Sargent. I live at 920 Winton Street in Wausau. I'm the executive director of United Way of Marathon County, and you may know of us from a lot of different projects, but one of the things that we do is we do oversee the work of the Housing Task Force here in Marathon County in the city of Wausau. We support the efforts of the city of Wausau in the development of this project. We've supported this project from its inception, and we continue to support it now. We support all housing development. We need both market and low-income housing projects. Housing is needed for all of our population. It spurs on economic development, which assists all community members. If we want to attract the workforce, we need to invest in projects like this. if we don't invest in a housing development, we create a scenario where lower rental cost units basically get snapped up because of low housing inventory. This potentially drives up rent prices, making affordability of low-income residents almost impossible. And I can tell you at United Way, we used to have, it was basically a low-income housing inventory of rental units. We don't have it anymore because that basically has been eliminated because people are they're basically purchasing down, snapping up rental units. So we support this project. We think it's good for our community. We think it's good for Wausau, and we know that there's many people that really desire to live downtown. We think it's a great project, so we support it.
Thank you. Next, I have James Tipple.
My name's James Tipple. I live at 314 Gerald's Court, Wausau, Wisconsin. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'll be real short because everybody stole what I was going to say. But one of the individuals that hit it on the head as far as I was concerned was Mr. Ekman. He had indicated, many, many years ago, people were sitting around this room making tough decisions. Some were easy, some were unanimous, some had some undue consternation. But in the end, they moved the city forward, and tonight we got to keep moving the city forward. This is a great project. I followed it from the beginning. In my short 12 years, as I indicated, with working with the city, we moved the city forward, and I'm hoping tonight we'll do the same. Good luck on the vote.
Thank you. Next, I have Maggie Gordon.
Thank you. Maggie Gordon, co-founder of the Children's Imaginarium. I want to thank the council for the opportunity to share from the museum's perspective and about the tremendous community support that's made the museum and the downtown importance of that progress. So as you're aware, the Children's Imaginarium will be the first major piece to open on the former mall site. We are on target for a fall opening. I want to thank WAS, the foundations, the city, for seeing the potential that existed where the mall once stood, and the collaborative effort and the work that has been needed to realize the potential for the community. We are honored to bring the Children's Museum to life in the heart of the downtown redevelopment. A children's museum has been a decades-long dream. We're talking the 90s. A children's museum was wanted in this community. So it's now 2023 and it's happening. So time is definitely a factor. The Children's Museum will be a cornerstone in our downtown. Children's museums are destinations, bringing families into the downtown, adding to the vibrancy of our community, an economic driver, attracting a new and unique energy to our downtown. But we also need a population base living in our downtown to help complete that circle. About 2 weeks ago, on August 10th, we had the absolute pleasure of hosting Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez and WEDC Secretary and CEO Missy Hughes. They were on site at the Children's Imaginarium, looking out of our door at the progress that's happening in downtown Wausau. They were thrilled with the museum progress. They were impressed with the collective vision of what's happening in that downtown space. And as a whole, the forward progress that Wausau is making in their downtown to enhance our community. I invite the council to share in the excitement of our community, recognizing that our foundations, local businesses, and families have rallied behind the museum's capital campaign, and we'll all soon be able to enjoy the community asset together, a place where children can learn, parents can engage, and families can grow right in the heart of downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, I have William Panzagrow.
I hope it's not last but least.
Absolutely not. Thank you for joining us.
Bill Panzagrow, Board of Directors, The Open Door here in Wausau. Here to speak on the resolution approving termination of the American Resource Funds. I want you to know the Board of Directors agrees with this. We're not going to fight it, but the one thing that we were discouraged with is the fact that there was no communication. We were never told and not asked whatever on this. So that is one thing. In fact, we virtually found it out by reading the city pages. So that's pretty bad when you got to find out what's happening to you by reading the paper. And the other thing is the article in the paper is somewhat wrong because we were closed for one weekend. That's all. After that weekend, we opened from 9 till noon, 3 days a week. That went on for 2 weeks, and then we opened from 8 o'clock till noon, 5 days a week. And we continue to do that. It is not closed. People are asking me, are you closed? No, we are not. We are there to continue to help those that are released from jail or prison, and also some of the homeless, because we are the one with the clothing. I don't know if everybody knows, but when they opened the community center, they brought all of the clothing over to us because they don't have room for it. So we provide clothing, we provide a cup of coffee for them to take 20 minutes to be around. So we agree with it, with the recommendation. The person who knew most about it was our administrator, who had to resign due to health reasons. And so basically that's when the rug was pulled out from under us, and we knew nothing about what was going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we've gotten through public comment. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And we will move on to our agenda. We're now on file number 230815. It's a resolution from the Economic Development Committee approving the First Amendment to the Development Agreement for Foundry on 3rd Phase 1 LLC. Looks like I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Rasmussen. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I see that we had posted for both open and closed session tonight with the idea that, a number of us may wish to have question and answer time with our outside counsel who assists with our development agreements. But it also occurs to me that the only thing that we've been asked for here is time. We've not been asked for more money. We've not been asked to rework the terms. We've not been asked to renegotiate who's who in the contract. All we've been asked for is time. And so I wonder if we even need that closed session. I guess if the rest of us want it, I'm certainly not going to oppose having it, but it seems that this shouldn't be that difficult of a decision to make. I mean, we've heard testimony tonight from folks who've talked about the economic condition nationwide, statewide, and within our community. From the legal sector, the foundations, philanthropic sector, we've heard from the banking sector, we've heard from real estate investors. Everyone is kind of in the same boat. And so it occurs to me that what we were told a couple meetings ago, this is not uniquely a single developer situation. And, as Liz pointed out, in the past, we have granted extensions to other projects. One I can think of that maybe deserved it less. And there's not a comparison to be drawn there, because the situation with that particular project and that particular individual is vastly different. So I think that when we've only been asked for time, I think there's room for us we need to really work in good faith as a good faith partner. Like Liz said, I talked about the term good faith and bad faith the last time we talked about this. We've known since the early part of the summer that an extension was necessary. And here we are 3 days from the contract deadline, and it really would be disingenuous of us to decide now versus 3 months ago that we're going to pull the rug and start over. And I really feel like there shouldn't be a reason that we can grant the extension of time. Earlier this week, we'd received an email from one of our peers talking about things like bonds and things on this project. this is a reverse TID project. If they don't deliver, they get nothing. I mean, what do we have to lose here? We're not down the road on the investment yet for the incentives. So I think that's what we need to look at. I think we just, I don't know. I would hope that we can make this decision easy and, that maybe we don't need 45 minutes of closed session with it. I mean, I'll partake in it if you guys want to do it, but I just think this shouldn't be so hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Denny.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess to respond to that briefly, if you've heard the old adage, time is money. That's why we're here. And it's more than time. There's opportunity loss. There's opportunity loss to these businesses. There's opportunity loss for our increment tax payment to the city. So there is a dollar figure associated with this delay. There's no question. And I agree with Michael Loy, bird in the hand. And I've been trying to get that bird in the hand, keep that bird in the hand for 90 days. So we've said it several times here. We've known for 90 days, yet we haven't really gotten down to brass tacks until just recently. I asked the question publicly almost 90 days ago in a letter to the editor regarding the sale. I asked it twice during council meetings that were cut short, and then just recently again. So we now hear that it's not a best practice. I trust Mr. Godorzi's judgment in construction and commercial real estate. I mean, that to me means a lot. But we're also looking at best practices for the city. We're in extraordinary times, so I don't think it's unreasonable. If the developer's having issues getting money, it's like building a house, starting your foundation before you have the bank loan. What do? Nobody expects you to be Warren Buffett, but I don't think it's unreasonable for the taxpayers to expect there to be consequences for failing to meet a promise. And to Mr. Stubbe's point on guarantees, there actually are such things as guarantees in contracts. I mean, nobody's here to be unreasonable, but I've been looking to raise the confidence level, and that's why I threw that idea out there 90 days ago. And here we are. Well, we can't do it because it's not a best practice. I understand that. But I'm looking for a little more than a warm and fuzzy. Give us something to go with here, and that's why I put those ideas out there to Mr. Van Scandal and the outside counsel to get some sounding board on potential guarantees or like guarantees. So I do believe, I think I heard 11 times that I didn't write the date down. I don't think the rates have gone up 11 times since we signed this contract, but certainly some of that was in motion then, and there's still rumors that there could be another increase yet this year. So we're not out of the woods yet in that regard. So I still would like to see some movement or some promises in a form of a financial agreement or a financial vehicle that would help ensure and give us confidence, raise that confidence a little bit beyond a warm and fuzzy. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I guess I'm a little surprised at initial commentary because I and my colleagues were sitting here at our last council meeting, and it appeared utterly imperative from some of my peers that we delay this vote and seek additional information from outside counsel. Some on this body agreed with that, some disagreed, but that was the premise, and ultimately that was the reason, supposedly, that we had not voted on this at the last council meeting. So I think before we become a satire of ourselves in the public eye, perhaps we should stick with what was requested, if not demanded, the last meeting, and that was was to ask additional information and questions from outside counsel. My understanding is some of that at least would have to occur in closed session. And secondly, I think there's been this mythology kind of put out there that, hey, we knew about all this months ago, so why some of the concern and surprise now? Well, that's patently inaccurate, and I think it was before the last ED meeting, probably hours prior to that, we were given some, in my opinion, what appeared to be critical updates, and then gagged with a confidentiality label, so we were not able to provide that information to the public. So that notion of time frame and transparency and updates, that's really, in my opinion, a fallacy. And also, early on in the meeting, we were given a bunch of examples throughout, recent city history where extensions had been granted, and we were supposed to see the parallel between those situations and this one. None of those were even remarkably similar or parallel to the current situation that we're facing today, and there are a variety of factors. We can go into those perhaps later tonight, but not valid comparisons in my opinion. But if we are to kind of glean from city history, we can do it in a more valid way and look at some of the situations that should have caused bigger red flags or action in the past and did not, apparently, from this body in prior terms. And those misadventures ultimately ended up as kind of imploded development deals and sequences. And one of them, of course, was the France River Life development. And this is germane as an example this evening because we were dealing with what turned out to be just a sequence of big red flags that were ignored. And one of those throughout the course of that process was about questions regarding the capital stack. And time again, we were told that capital stack was going to fully materialize, and what the city ultimately learned was that stack was whack, and it did not materialize. The money was not there to carry out the project, and had the city acted more judiciously at an earlier date, it probably would have not imploded or exploded in such a spectacular fashion. And we've also, and this goes back to the 80s in city history, but more recently, maybe about 9 years ago or so, the council, this is prior to my time, but many would remember, and this is kind of analogous and germane to the situation tonight, kind of the city being urged to approve the CBL mall deal. Now, many that have pushed and advocated for this deal also supported the France and CBL deal, and we'll remember that was prior to CBL filing bankruptcy and being investigated by the FBI. But clearly, we can see in retrospect just what a poor kind of decision and assessment it was to support the CBL deal. So in short, on that level, we can see that the city has really, in terms of private-public ventures in the past, it's had some problems, some of which could have been addressed effectively had it actually taken action when there were big red flags. And we're seeing flags now, and hey, they're red. So maybe unlike the past, we should take the time and do what we told the public we were going to do the last meeting, and that was seek information from outside counsel. And my position as the older person in which this site sits is that the city has made good on its contractual obligations to date. And it would not only be reasonable, but in the best interest of our community and the taxpayers if our development partners did the same. Currently, it is not looking that way, at least prior to an approved extension. And lastly, the city has habitually not strongly defended its developer agreements in the past, and this has projected an image of instability and weakness, and it puts blood in the water, and it puts Wausau at a disadvantage, because who's going to take developer agreements seriously with the city of Wausau if the city of Wausau does not take them seriously itself? So that must change. And so I disagree with the prior commentary. I'd like to speak with outside counsel. I'd like to know how the terms of what's been agreed upon have been met, and if there's been any economic harms, I want to make sure that it does not fall on the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for your information, if somebody has a motion to go into closed session, I could take that. We do have two people who want to speak, but maybe after that, if there's a moment somebody would like to make that motion and second. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, let me apologize for my my point of order. I thought we were here to vote on a delay and not get a history lesson. But that being said, I think Alder Killian pretty much hit everything on the head. I'll just add, you know, I would like to also speak with outside counsel because of the past history the city has had with the Pt.1 company. They've been hanging around here for about 3 years now, and all they've done is dealt us red flags, and that's why I would like to go to closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Watson.
So to speak about the interest rate changes, it has been actually 11 since I have it here since March of 28 of 2022. There's been 11 tax or interest rate changes, and they're probably going to keep going. And just to sort of think about, like, as a developer, I teach economics, and so we look at these statistics a lot. I mean, the rates were near zero for probably 3/4 of the last 20 years. So to anticipate that they would be accelerating at this type of rate is really unprecedented. I hate to use that word because it's used way too much, especially pandemic-wise, but it's not something that we anticipated seeing. I mean, there's lots of monetary policy that is so out in left field just to try to overcome, you know, the different kinds of issues, the liquidity issues we have in our system. So, I mean, this stuff is totally, like, I'm in class and I'm, like, mind blown because it's just crazy stuff that's going on. And I think speaking about capital stack issues that maybe other projects had in the past, those were different situations. That was when interest rates were at near record lows. Now interest rates are a lot higher. And if there is some kind of way that banks are still discussing this possibility with this developer, I think that's promising. Also, I think setting a new deadline for that June of 2024, that gives us the right to say at that time, no more, right? So if we leave this session today and say this is going to be it, we expect something by the end of June, you know, that gives that developer a little perspective saying that we're not going to give them another amendment, right? There's not going to be a second. I was really happy to hear that WAS is putting up a lot of funds to sort of correct the issue that we talked about at the Economic Development Committee about the capping in the street developments. So that was really, I was really happy to hear that, that WAS sort of came forward to right that wrong. And then one other thing I thought was a good idea or point to make from Liz was that it's a reverse TID, and the longer they wait, the less money they get, right? So if they delay more, they're not going to get as many payments. And to speak about the housing issue, until supply meets demand, market prices are going to be insane, right? So as the gentleman who did the housing survey mentioned, I mean, in those places where you get more supply of homes, you're going to be able to have supply get closer to demand, and those prices are going to come down. That's just how supply and demand works. I don't think it's really the best interest of our taxpayers to wait for another development. I mean, if we have to start over, that's leaving this land empty for a lot longer. It's leaving people without homes that could actually get down there in downtown, and then I think it would just be a long time, and I just love to see something go there. So, I mean, I'm more than happy to go to the closed session, but I just wanted to state my case. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you. Well, because I know that there was a request for, so I'll make that motion to pursuant to S 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session relating to the proposed First Amendment to the development agreement with Foundry on Third Pt.1 LLC and the purchase and development agreement and related amendments with Wausau Opportunity Zone, Inc., Wausau Center Mall.
All right, I have a motion by Alder Gisselman, and it looks like a second by Alder Killian. Alder Lukens, I do see you in the queue. Is there something you'd like to share maybe before?
Yeah,
Yes,
if I could.
absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank Alder Watson for her input because I'm not an economics person, but have worked in the legal field with real estate, and I also very much appreciated hearing from Mr. Vogt. And I do think also that while none of us want any kind of delays, if we wait and then have to start over, that's not going to help. And I think it's really important to listen to, some of the other people that have been, starting up businesses here. And I guess I just really appreciated hearing from Mr. Vogt with that, and also the need for housing and how that trickles down. So thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. All right, so I guess we are ready to vote, and you are right now voting on whether or not you'd like to go into closed session. And we're going to call the roll. Well, Clerk Caitlin will.
Lukens?
Aye.
Martins?
Aye.
Killian?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Gisselman?
Aye.
McElhaney? Rasmussen?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Herbst? Larson?
Aye.
Hanky?
Aye.
Motion passes 11-0.
All right, I guess we'll see you maybe shortly, maybe not.